Hey everybody, it's Chris here with SmokingPipes.com. I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Andy Wike.
And today we are talking about the Caldwell Eastern Standard. Today we're talking about the Eastern Standard by Caldwell Cigars, and I was really excited to talk about this cigar today, especially with Andy, because Andy, I know this is a cigar that has a special place in your rotation. You even have an entire humidor dedicated to this cigar.
Specifically this Vitola.
Okay.
Which is the Cream Crush.
And I'm smoking the Euro Express. This is a little Corona, and Andy is smoking, I believe, Churchill.
Yeah.
So both part of the Eastern Standard family, but Andy, catch us up a little bit on this blend, the Eastern Standard, maybe the backstory of how this came to be in the Caldwell portfolio.
Sure, yeah. So Eastern Standard was one of the first three Caldwell core releases when Robert started the brand over 10 years ago. There was Eastern Standard, The King is Dead, and Long Live the King. All of those were sort of like very avant-garde for the time. There was, I think Robert had always really appreciated cigars. He's such a connoisseur of flavor and experience, and I think he sort of went about creating these first three core line editions as a way to challenge sort of our notions about specific cigar varieties and families. So Eastern Standard is a Connecticut cigar, but it's really full flavored.
Yeah.
It's sort of mild on the nicotine, like, medium mild, but it's really robust in terms of like the actual smoke itself. There's a lot of volume. It has a really great mouthfeel. And it's just tons of pepper. One of the original taglines for Eastern Standard was "Not your daddy's Connecticut," right? Because most people associate Connecticut cigars with like really light bodied. Some people will say, oh, it's like smoking air. This is not like smoking air. This is my desert island cigar. If I could only smoke one cigar for the rest of my life, it would be the Eastern Standard Cream Crush.
Yeah, and as somebody who, when I first got into cigars and started reading up on everything there was to read, a lot of people pointed you in the direction of Connecticut cigars. Like you said, there was a handful of experiences I had where it was like smoking air because I was primarily smoking outside. I wasn't getting a lot of the aroma that you get inside of smoking a cigar, and I was kind of left wanting a little bit more. And I think the Caldwell Eastern Standard delivers that. If you're somebody who has gravitated, even for a long time, towards Connecticut cigars, I think this will be comfortable for you. It does have that creamy mouthfeel. It's also very pleasant. It's not overwhelming. It keeps your palate very fresh. That's
a really good point. Yeah, I mean, I think you could smoke back-to-back Eastern Standards, and at least for me personally, it doesn't fatigue the palate. I never feel like I need to like have a palate cleanse or anything like that. There's, it's very creamy. It's almost buttery in a way, but there's like a hint of pepper. There's like some vegetal notes that I really like. It sort of reminds me of like some nice red Virginias. Speaking to the pipe tobacco side of things, but there's still like it's very intriguing. It sort of reminds me of like a Virginia flake, right? Like you can smoke it and enjoy whatever you're doing. You don't really have to pay attention to it. But if you do pay attention to it, it's just sort of like unveils these layers of nuance.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what is in the cigar. I think the first thing that we wanted to talk about was the star of the show, and that's this wrapper. And this is really what makes this different than just your normal run-of-the-mill Connecticut cigar.
Yeah. So the wrapper is really interesting. It's actually like an Ecuadorian Connecticut hybrid Arapiraca wrapper. So it sort of takes, essences from both of those well-known varietals and sort of like combines them into something that's more than the sum of its parts. I think it's really, really full flavored. And it just adds like a sweetness, but it's also like a bit richer, a bit darker than you would expect from a Connecticut wrapper. And then of course the like fillers too, I think are really interesting. There's some really nice aged leaf in here, particularly like Criollo and Corojo leaf.
Yeah, this is one that even if grabbing off a humidor now, grabbing it on site now, it's gonna smoke like something that already has a bit of age on it. I think that's why it has that freshness to it. It also that cedar quality you're getting in it. But it also has that underlying little bit of power, which when we were looking into the components of this, we saw that there was some Nicaraguan leaf in there as well.
Yeah.
In the filler, I believe.
Yes. Yes, in the filler there's a little bit of Nicaraguan leaf, which I think just gives it like a little bit of extra oomph. That's where you're getting a little bit of that pepper from. Part of that is, it does add some body, it does add some strength. That sort of earns that tagline, not your daddy's Connecticut.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, when I'm reaching for a Caldwell Eastern Standard, there's a couple different reasons when I reach for this cigar. First, situational, typically a morning cigar. It's also something if somebody comes to me and they want to start trying out Caldwell cigars,
Yeah.
and they want an idea of what the portfolio is sort of built around, I think Eastern Standard is a really good representation of Rob's palate.
Yes.
And the direction of which the Caldwell portfolio starts to evolve into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for those of you who have been following Caldwell, Rob's palate tends to be, a bit medium to mild in terms of strength. He's not a huge fan of really full-bodied or sort of spice bomb cigars. He really likes an elegant, sort of classic expression of tobacco, and I think Eastern Standard definitely delivers on that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one that has high repeatability.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cigar that you can go back to and get a very comforting experience, but also a very versatile experience. If you're taking cigars on a trip, you don't know whether you're going to be smoking in the morning or after dinner or midday. This is going to be one that has a little bit of everything in it.
It also ages incredibly well.
Okay.
Like I smoked I actually smoked a cream crush from one of the very first production runs of Eastern Standard, so over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it sort of had that signature Eastern profile,
Yeah.
but it was a bit more settled. It was a bit more like just, I don't know, it's sort of like when Virginia's age and they start to take on this sort of molasses-like quality, or like this sort of deeper, darker sweetness that sort of permeates the whole entire blend. I sort of prefer them fresh for the same reasons that I prefer Virginia tobaccos fresh.
Yeah, you're not a big aging pipe tobacco guy.
I'm not a big aging pipe tobacco guy. I like to experience like each component as an individual varietal that sort of adds to the dish.
Yeah.
More or less, you know what I mean? So I like the hay-like notes. I like the citrus, those sorts of things, which do tend to mellow out with age.
Yeah. And I know that the aesthetics of a cigar don't always translate into taste, but I gotta say this is a very clean, minimalistic, monochrome look that I really enjoy. I'm a sucker for white bands on a Connecticut-style wrapper, and for me, like, this is such a clean, just color palette on a cigar. I know Caldwell
works really nicely. I think like it really makes your eye focus on the wrapper itself.
Yeah, and as somebody who, my background in this industry is taking photos and videos of cigars, and the Eastern Standard, even before I was working at Smoking Pipes, it was always one that would catch my eye when I would see it on an Instagram post or something like that. It's just something about also the artwork that Caldwell has in their packaging.
Yes. It's very unique. I mean, it's, I think when Robert was originally sort of designing these brands, he wanted cigars that didn't look like cigars. Like he wanted cigar packaging that didn't look like cigar packaging. And I think he sort of accomplished that. I mean, like almost all of the of the Caldwell core collection does have these beautiful, beautiful portraits, whether it's of Queens or Anastasia, for example, or our friend Hans here. I say Hans is sort of like a piece of Caldwell ephemera. But so speaking of Hans and the sort of origin story behind Hans, I wanted to read a piece of Caldwell ephemera that used to go in some of the packaging. This really cool little letter that says, Eastern Standard, herring, boat, dirt, 4 generations of Redick Delish. In the summer of 1916, Hans Nielsen Lasko was hired as a boat hand for the United Royal Finnish Herring Oil Company, Ltd. His boat sank off the coast of Iceland soon thereafter. Lucky for young Hans, he was brought to shore by a school of fish that raised him as one of their own. After gaining many friends and amassing an almost comical wealth, young Hans moved to Cuba, where he invented dirt He used to keep this dirt in a secret wooden box in his bed, next to his blankie. This is why we put Eastern Standards in a wooden box. It is representative of the box Hans used to keep his dirt in. After losing all of his money in a series of bad investments, Hans fled to the Dominican Republic, carrying his special dirt with him in his little box. So as not to raise suspicion, he hid the box under his blankie. Hans passed this tradition of dealing dirt down through the generations. The Eastern Standard Brands pays homage to this 100-year history. Each box has a very old Finnish saying, herring, dirt, boat, which is meant to celebrate what the old herring juros thought made them happy. Herring, dirt, and boats. There was only one thing missing from this formula. Live east, die young. Don't believe the hype. Make your time count. Eastern Standard. Robert created this story about this character, when he first launched the brand, and it's sort of a silly story, but it sort of adds to the myth and the sort of character of the cigar as a brand, but also as Caldwell, of Caldwell as a lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think this cigar is a great representation of Caldwell as a lifestyle. Caldwell smokers are sometimes a different breed, and I think this cigar is a different breed of Connecticut in the same way. On the surface, it may just look like a regular Connecticut, but once you really get into it, it's one that provides a completely different experience, gives you more than what your average Connecticut would, not your daddy's Connecticut. And it's a great place to start if you're just getting into the Caldwell line.
Or even if you're just getting started in cigars. I'll occasionally bring some cigars to friends and stuff, and if they've never really smoked a lot of cigars before, I'll hand them an Eastern because it's really accessible, You don't have to have a very, a really strongly developed palate to be able to enjoy this cigar. But it's also one of those things that as you do develop your palate, you're just going to appreciate it more and more as time goes by.
Yeah, and it also comes across on a bunch of different Vitolas in the Eastern Standard line. They all do smoke a little bit differently. You said Cream Crush is your favorite. I'm smoking the Euro Express because it's one that I want in a shorter format in the morning. It also comes in a pyramid, and really all the Vitolas you would expect from a premium cigar like this.
But specifically with Caldwell's own spin on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the essences of Caldwell as a brand is the boutique premium experience, not only in the tobaccos themselves, but also in the Vitolas in which they're offered.
And naming conventions.
And the naming conventions, that's why Caldwell cigars have specific Vitola names rather than saying Toro, Robusto, whatever, because often they don't actually specifically match those canonical terms.
Sure.
Sometimes it's a little shorter, sometimes it's a little bit fatter, or skinnier, there's... Rob blends these things for the very best expressions of the blend across ring gauge variants or Vitola variants, because it's more important to treat the cigar with respect and treat the flavor with respect and yield the best possible expression of that specific cigar in that specific size than to follow any sort of industry conventions.
Yeah. So the Caldwell Eastern Standard, perfect place to start or revisit in the Caldwell line. Thanks, Andy, for being here.
Sure.
And
thanks, Chris.
Let us know in the comments if you've tried the Caldwell Eastern Standard. Be sure to also like and subscribe to our YouTube channel here for more Caldwell reviews. Let us know what Caldwell cigar you want to see us talk about next.